Are we all in order here? We have a full governing body, 100% staff here. There we go. Call this meeting to order. This is the regular session. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Here.
Councilmember Roberts,
Here.
Councilmember Clark,
Here.
Councilmember Palumbi, here, Councilmember Graves,
Here.
Councilmember Saper,
Here.
Councilmember Tull.
Here.
If I can push your button. Item number 3 is a moment of silence. Thank you. On to the Pledge of Allegiance. Today will be led by Councilmember Smith. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we are moving right along to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Opposed, no.
Yes.
Motion carry, I'm sorry, I cut someone off short there. I heard all approval. Okay. Agenda's approved. Next up is comments from the public. If there's anyone from the public wishing to speak, please proceed up to the microphone and give me your name and address, please.
Hello, my name's Sarah Shekels, 1209 East 23rd Avenue, and I wanted to talk about the Complete Streets item that's on the agenda tonight. I'm just hoping that when you discuss it, I would really like you to consider whether or not these larger delineators that are being mentioned are actually going to prevent vehicles from running over them. Most of the ones that were put up originally are gone because people just run them over. My husband was hit by a car on his bicycle last week in North Kansas City, so it wasn't in the bike lanes, but I want drivers in the area to be aware of the safety of cyclists, pedestrians, all of the above, and I think that a more permanent structure to protect the bike lanes will achieve that. So I want you to consider that in your discussion tonight, and I'm hoping we can move forward because I feel like no one wants to debate this anymore. And that's all.
Thank you. Any further public comments?
I'm Rich Gross, Executive Director of the North Kansas City Business Council. I wanted to make sure you all got copies of the business directory, and you'll recognize a lot of places that you're familiar with, but there's 900 plus businesses in North Kansas City, so there's a few more to learn about.
Thank you for dropping that off this evening. Are there any further public comments?
Hi, I'm Jonathan Barnes. Until recently was on the Planning Commission for about 6.5 years and currently serve on the hospital board. And I wanted to talk about 2 issues that you're bringing up tonight. I think number 1 is the term limit issue that you're bringing up. And I'd like to advocate against making a blanket term limit policy on boards and commissions. Just from my experience, I know of several people that I've served on both boards with who have left their position midterm, and I think that any amount of time taking a look at board and commission makeups and putting on term limits, I think would be a little too harsh, and I think it would have an unintended consequence of maybe ending up with boards and commissions that are incredibly inexperienced. Just for example, now that I'm no longer in the planning commission, we just went through a master plan process 6 years ago. And I believe the only person left on the planning commission who was on board during that process is Dave Wood. So I think we should take a much more nuanced approach and look at boards individually by need rather than having a blanket term limit policy put in place. Also, if I have some time left, I'd also like to say I'm very pleased that you're taking up the reappointment of Becky Welburn to the hospital board. I think there was some information that was left out a couple of weeks ago that we're in the middle of a strategic planning process, and her experience is very valuable to that process, and I think it would be wrong to not allow her to continue along with that process, and I think even more importantly, oversee the implementation of that strategic plan over her next 4-year term and potentially beyond. I think, again, in the sake of nuance, I think looking at the hospital board, and while she has served for 19 years, I do think that beyond that, you go down quite far, I apologize, quite far to the next most experienced person on the board. That said, Councilmember Safer brought up a lot of fantastic points 2 weeks ago. And I think those are points that need to be discussed. And we have a joint meeting with the city, of the hospital board at the end of the year. And I think, Councilmember Safer, you should bring those points up. And I think we should have an open discussion about those topics and any other topics anybody else has a concern about with the hospital board. And I think we can cover those at that time. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments this evening. Is there anyone else from the public wishing to comment? Seeing none, we are moving on to the consent agenda. Is there,
Move.
oh, that's, okay. Is there a motion to approve the consent?
Move to approve the
I
consent.
would like
agenda.
to pull the Sarah Shekels appointment to the Planning Commission from the consent agenda, please, for discussion.
All right, we are removing number 10 and putting that on the regular agenda. Is there a motion to, is there a
Okay,
motion
I'll
for the modified?
Move to approve the amended agenda then.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, all those in favor of the amended agenda, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. All right. We are to the first regular item now, which would be number 10 from the consent agenda.
Appointment of Sarah Shekels to the City Planning Commission, fulfilling the unexpired term of Jonathan Barnes, term to expire 11/13/2022.
Thank you. Councilmember Graves.
Yes, so I just pulled this from the consent agenda just for discussion purposes. I intend to vote yes on this item, but there's a lot of confusion that I want to clear up among residents in our community. So I just want to have like a public discussion about this issue. Before I get into this, as noted, I want to vote yes on this, so don't take it like I'm starting trouble here. I want to commend the mayor. He's done a really fantastic job on nominations thus far, and most of the nominations have been like way overly qualified. I went through and just pulled a few examples. We recently put Mitchell Plyler on the hospital board, who has a master's in healthcare administration degree. Just recently on the library board, we added Bart German, who has a degree in English with a focus on technical communications. And we added Timothy Nick Dean to the library board, who has a master of library science degree from Emporia. And so basically what I want to get at is city council people, the residents are not aware of the fact that we do not have access to applications. I literally have no idea who has applied to a board and who hasn't. All we are presented with are the people that the mayor is either nominating or renominating. And so if you go to the Planning Commission, for example, because that's what this nomination is for, they have not had, the most recent nomination, appointment, I should say, to the Planning Commission in recent history was back in November of 2019. So it's been quite a while since someone was appointed. I have no idea how many applications there are for the Planning Commission. I don't know if there's 2 applications or 50 applications. And so basically I have 2 questions for the mayor, because he's the only one that has access to the applications. And keep in mind, I want to vote yes. My questions are, how many people applied for this position, number 1? Are there 1 applications? Are there 10, 20, 50? And then my second question is this the most qualified applicant? Because the elephant in the room is that you're friends with this applicant, and this application was just filled out a month ago, and nothing stands out on it as being overqualified, which is most of the nominations that you put forth thus far have been like way overly qualified for the position. And so is this the most qualified applicant? And I trust you if you say yes, and I'll vote yes. Or are you appointing your friend to a board?
I have 16 applications on file. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of which I've received since I've been elected. I'm sorry, 6, 7. One I didn't put a date, but where it is, I'm guessing it was within the term here. My reason for appointment for Sarah Shekels was, she has a good understanding of the master plan, a good understanding of the direction we've been going in the community. She's participated in the, I'm going to get the name wrong, North Kansas City for Complete Streets group, helped do a lot of advocating for Armour Road. So I feel like she really has a good understanding of where we've been as a community and where we want to go. In terms of most qualified, I mean, everybody's kind of all over the place here. There's qualifications of various degrees, but I was definitely looking for someone that I felt truly understood the direction we've been going. And from my conversations with Sarah over the years, I felt she fit into that bucket. Councilmember Clevenger.
Well, first of all, I'd like to commend our new mayor as far as keeping us apprised of kind of who he's getting as far as not all the applications, but the people that he's going to be appointing and why. You know, Sarah's been always very active in our community, and I like that. I think she really studies the issues, so I'm definitely in favor of the appointment. The mayor's made some great appointments lately, and I trust him on this. You know, it is the mayor to bring the appointments to us. I don't know that legally we have to see all the applications that are received, but it's up to us to vote up or down on that nomination. But based off the nominations, like Councilman Graves said, Bart German, who I got to meet at the library board meeting last night, and Timothy Nick Dean, those guys are really home runs. So I trust the mayor on this one as well.
I guess just to address, and I'm off, just to address, I mean, looking at the list, I mean, a whole host of these on the list I would consider friends or people I know from the community. I mean, it's a small community. Inevitably, I'm going to know a lot of people on the list. I mean, usually I'm shocked if someone applies for something that I don't have at least some familiarity with. But that's all I have. Have another what? Oh, and there's yeah, correct. As Councilmember Clevenger brought up, there's still an additional opening on the Planning Commission that I'm still evaluating. So, is there I'm sorry, Councilmember Toll.
I would also tell you, I've had a question from somebody in our ward that said, when there's an opening, oh, I applied for that, I wonder if they have it. And I said, I'm sure they do, I'll call and check. So when I called Crystal, actually, they didn't have it on file, it got lost in the mail. So if you have a specific question, if you have someone from your ward that's interested in a position, I know Crystal would let you know, yes, we have it, or no, it somehow got lost.
Are we confirming that when you were, I'm sorry, when you receive them via email, you confirm back that it's at least been received? Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it was a
And-
paper copy, I think it just got lost in the mail.
Which around here is very believable. No, hopefully going forward that there'll be a better application on the website, so people should be encouraged a little bit more to hopefully apply through there. Councilmember Graves.
Yeah, I just want to thank you. And publicly, you just dispelled a myth that I've had literally multiple people tell me in the last few days, which is that there's no applicants for boards. There's the residents tell me all the time that you're scaring people away from boards, people aren't applying, there's no applicants, it's hard to find applicants. So thank you you just said there's 16 applicants for the plan.
Yeah. And I'll say overall, I've received at least 21 applications in this year alone. And I don't know what the average number has been in the past, but it's been seems like business is booming on the applications. So, Councilmember Roberts.
I'm just going to move to approve or vote on this. Second.
There's a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. The motion.
Can I ask
carries.
who made the second?
I'm sorry, I'm going to get in trouble. Go too fast. Are we good? All right. On to number 12.
First Christian Church Parking Lease Agreement, Bill number 7611, ordinance number 9408.
Kim.
I'd like to call on the city's councilor, Tom Barzee.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. Before you this evening is what amounts to a renewal of a lease that we've had for many years to provide additional parking in the downtown business area over here behind the Christian church. The fee is the same as it's been previously, and that's $3,500 per year. And it's been our understanding that we've needed this parking, and so nothing has really changed except the dates, and that's it. It's for 1 year that automatically renews for 2 additional years.
Thank you. Is a motion for first reading?
Move for the first reading.
I'm sorry.
I
Councilmember Graves.
have a quick question. I wasn't aware that the city actually leased that lot. Is that for public use? Or
Yes.
just city use? Public use?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Councilmember Toll.
I was kind of along the same line. I was trying to see this. I drove by this when I saw it on here. I assume maybe it's for the businesses that are on Armour. but I don't see anything that says it's a public lot. So I'm not sure that people would know, hey, I can park here.
We can certainly look into that.
Yeah, I learned through this memo that it was a public lot.
We can evaluate to see if, and again, the landowner would have to be amenable to this, to adding signage.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? We had a motion by Councilmember Smith. Is there a second?
Second.
Councilmember Roberts. All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no.
An ordinance adopting and approving a parking lot lease by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri as lessee and the First Christian Church of North Kansas City, Missouri as lessor for the lease of a certain parking lot generally located at 2011 Fayette in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that Bill number 7611 be placed on second and final reading and pass as ordinance number 9408.
Go ahead and get a second.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, I can answer the question right now. The
Okay.
lease specifically provides that the lessee, that's the city, shall be allowed to post appropriate signage identifying the parking lot as a public parking lot during business hours, Monday through Friday.
Let's do it.
Thank you. We have a first and second. Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Plumby?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving a parking lot lease by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri as lessee and the First Christian Church of North Kansas City, Missouri as lessor for the lease of a certain parking lot generally located at 2011 Fayette in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri. Item 13, 1802 to 18, it's really 1830, isn't it? To 1830 Jasper Parking Lot License Agreement, Bill number 7612, ordinance number 9409.
Kim?
Sorry about that. I'd like to call on the city councilor, Tom Barzini.
You had me thinking I called on the wrong person for a second there.
The best way to describe this is, we use this as additional overflow parking from the community center, as you'll notice on the little diagram on the bottom of my memo, as well as on the back of the lease itself. It's a triangle-shaped piece of property owned by Northtown Devco, or whatever name they've put it in now, 243 Jasper LLC now. And we lease it for the total sum of $1 per year. That allows us to use it. It's my understanding it is used from time to time. And we indemnify them for our use as well as provide insurance. Oh, I do need to make one, there's a change to the agreement itself. On there, the extension and modification of lease on the insurance coverage, there's reference to $3 million aggregate limits in two places. We really only have $2 million. I've talked to Richard Lanning this afternoon, and he's agreeable to modifying that to change it to $2 million. So that change will be made if approved.
Is everybody good with that? Okay,
That
thank
changes
you. I did have
everything.
one question for Mr. Sands. What do we use this for?
It's overflow parking for,
It's overflow parking for both the community center and for.
Oh, that's the entire parcel, that whole lot, or is this just?
So we have also used this. You may remember back when we purchased those large concrete barriers, that's actually where we staged those, because we didn't
Oh,
have.
okay.
If that helps you jog your
Yeah,
memory
no,
of what this space is.
I guess I wasn't sure where the line was, if the city owned any of that overflow lot or not, but okay. Thank you. Is there a
First reading.
motion?
Second.
Second, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed, no?
Yes.
Carries.
An ordinance adopting and approving an industrial land lease extension and modification agreement for real property by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri as lessee and 243 Jasper LLC, successor in interest to Northtown Devco as lessor regarding the lease of vacant land adjoining 1802 to 1830 Jasper in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that Bill number 7612 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9409.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving an industrial land lease extension and modification agreement for real property by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri as lessee and 243 Jasper LLC, successor in interest to Northtown Devco as lessor, regarding the lease of vacant land adjoining 1802 to 1830 Jasper in the City of North Kansas City, Missouri. Item 14, prohibiting the practice of conversion therapy in North Kansas City. Bill number 7609, ordinance number 9406.
I get to call myself on this one. I'll be brief on this. When I was researching housing discrimination ordinance that we passed last year, this came across the screen a lot as a common theme. So, I was aware of it. I took a lot of time to learn more about it. And during that time, that brought me to the ordinance and seeing 3 other cities in Missouri currently have a similar ordinance, Columbia, St. Louis, and Kansas City, Missouri. I hope you read the memo in the ordinance and have a good understanding of conversion therapy. I'm not going to read you all of it, but I did think it was important that we pick out a couple key points from the recitals, which were there's no scientifically valid evidence that support the practices of conversion therapy. So most reputable organizations in counseling and mental health have rejected this practice. The second one, professionals have also determined that conversion therapy is not only ineffective, but is also substantially dangerous to an individual's mental and physical well-being, and is also shown to contribute to depression, self-harm, low self-esteem. I have that twice, family rejection, and suicide. And just a note on that, youth that undergo conversion therapy attempt suicide at a rate twice that of their peers that have not undergone this practice. So this is a very damaging practice to the mental health of our LGBT youth. So I'll close with saying, our youth and our friends that are part of the LGBTQ community, they're not mentally ill, they're not miswired. So I ask you that you please support this and vote yes on this ordinance and show that North Kansas City does not and will not tolerate this abusive practice. Let me know if you have any questions, please. Councilmember Roberts.
Move to approve.
Second.
First reading.
First, second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Carries.
An ordinance amending Title V, Business Licenses and Regulations of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by adding a new chapter 5.56, Conversion Therapy Prohibited, to prohibit the practice of conversion therapy on minors.
I move that bill number 7609 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9406.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
An ordinance amending Title V, Business License and Regulations of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri by adding a new chapter 5.56, Conversion Therapy Prohibited, to prohibit the practice of conversion therapy on minors. Item 15, Juneteenth federal holiday, resolution number 21-056.
Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At your last council meeting, we asked, now that the Juneteenth holiday is a federal holiday, if the city should observe that particular holiday. At that meeting, you provided your support for the city to recognize Juneteenth as a federal holiday. So before you today is the action that would amend the city's handbook to make Juneteenth a city holiday.
Move to approve.
Second.
The motion is second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Item 16, Board, Commission, and Committee Term Limit Discussion.
Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Councilmember Tull has requested that the City Council discuss term limits for cities, boards, commissions, and committees. In the staff memo, we outline exactly which ones have provisions for term limits in there, and there is only one, which is the Library Board, and I'd like to note that that is a state requirement. So I hate to say it, I would like to toss it back over to the City Council so you may have your discussion on this item.
Councilmember Toll.
I did receive a lot of feedback from the community and asked in my newsletter for people to get a hold of me as well. I did get lots of responses, and I put those in order from, yes, we do need term limits, to
maybe somewhere in between to no. The common theme that's brought up in the somewhere in between, and even some of the people that don't want term limits, have said that the risk that you run is ending up with a board with no one there that has the expertise to move forward. And certainly, some of our boards would be left without anyone to lead. There are other people that are aware, but also think we need to enact term limits. I think that this is a good item for all of us to discuss. I am sensitive to the fact that it takes a while before you really know what's going on in your committee to even be a helpful, useful participant. So I really just wanted to open it up to discuss with everyone your thoughts.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Couple of things, and thank you, Lisa, for bringing this forward. I'm glad we're going to discuss it. As far as, I think Mr. Barnes gave some great information, especially about the hospital board. I've heard from many hospital board members that it takes 2 or 3 years to at least feel comfortable and to know what you're doing on the hospital board and be a participating, productive member. I've worked with several boards. I've worked with the library board, worked with the parks board. I've been the liaison for both of them. Our parks board has some members on there that have been on there for quite a while, and they've got some great institutional knowledge. I mean, they know the ins and outs of that park, of the different parks, know what's going on. They also volunteer at many different events. Some of the members that are retired can volunteer more time than people that are working. So, I think, like we said, we should look at it at a kind of a case-by-case basis. And again, it's up for us to kind of reappoint, to vote what the mayor wants to do. But I just don't want to get someone out of there that has the years in, that has the knowledge that is important to have. So, I think that's important to look at, and I'm not in general favor of term limits. I think we should look at it at a case-by-case basis.
Councilmember Roberts.
I am actually somebody who is usually for term limits, but after a pretty hefty amount of feedback based on the last meeting, this is a volunteer, these are all volunteer positions. I think that really kind of swayed me in this in terms of term limits here. I do think, we look for the mayor to provide us direction on these reappointments or new appointments. The only thing I ask maybe going forward is if we can have more information available, especially when it comes to reappointments, because last time I feel like this would not even be a discussion right now had we had all the information available to us. But this is a voluntary position. I don't think we should do term limits here. If the boards want to set them, they can bring that forward to us, I think. But I'm not really for it on a volunteer basis. I think we err on the mayor's side.
So before I jump to the next comments, I will say, I had this distributed this evening. I'm going to work on having all reappointments fill out this form so that everybody can get a little bit more information on the work they've been doing. And so maybe then you can get a better understanding, I think, of the individual. This will give you an updated form, an updated idea of what they've been working on, and an updated, on their qualifications. So, and I'm just a work in progress. May still tweak this a little bit. Crystal's been generous enough to help me with this. So we're hoping to have this for all reapplicants, because like Rebecca's, she'd applied in 2002, and it just, some records are sometimes hard to find, and it became a last minute realizing I couldn't find any additional info. But this will help on some of that. Councilmember Palumbi.
So I have a few thoughts about this. The first thing is I kind of want to reiterate what Adam said in terms of this is a volunteer position, and people are dedicating a significant amount of time to do these volunteer board committees. And so I think if you have somebody, like an example with Rebecca and how qualified I think everybody kind of realizes she is, I think it would be a huge disservice to lose some of these members who are veterans and have served and shown that they are invaluable to what they bring to the boards. And then I really think it's difficult to make term limits a blanket statement, because I do acknowledge that each of these boards is different. Not to take away from, the library board or the liquor control board, but their responsibilities are a little bit different than what somebody who sits on the hospital board may be, because of just the magnitude of what the hospital is as an organization to the city. And so, and then I think we may have jumped the gun a little bit obviously in our last meeting in terms of her reappointment, but I do think that I would also be against term limits because I don't think that they really hinder us in any way. But I would be in favor of maybe limiting how many boards a person is allowed to be on at one point, because I do want to make sure that we don't have the same person on 3 or 4 boards within the city.
Okay,
Thanks.
I don't want to be accused of looking in one direction too much. So I got to go. This is Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, everybody said it pretty well, and Jonathan made some great points. First, I want to thank everybody who reached out after the last meeting when we made a vote with imperfect information. See a number of you in the room. Tony made some great points ahead of the vote. My plan had been to abstain because I had only a name. I didn't have any qualifications. I didn't have any knowledge of a strategic planning going on since I've learned that since. And I was swayed by some great points you made and went with that vote. After the fact, we learned a lot about Rebecca. We learned a lot about her importance to the board, about the ongoing strategic planning. And I thank you all for sending those to us. What I would ask going forward is that we get that from you before the meeting, because it's very difficult to vote based on information we haven't heard yet. So it's important that you gave us the feedback, but if you see something on the agenda, because many in this room are people who read the agenda ahead of the meeting, which thank you for doing that. If you see something like that, even if you think it's a slam dunk, if it's sitting on the consent agenda and it's usually something we approve, still reach out. Shoot us an email, call, whatever it takes. Let us know how important this is, because we can make mistakes. And I think many of us have owned up to that and said, like, we should have done better. So I agree with my colleagues. I'm not going to be a fan of having hard term limits of any kind, except for the library board, which is a state statute. There's too many times where if we even set them in practice, we would want to make an exception, right? We want to keep that one person that's got that institutional knowledge, or those two. So in theory, there are some pros, but in practice, it's not something I would support.
I would just say to a portion of that, the perfect board it's a gray area. It's somewhere in the middle. You have people of all different tenures. And that's just hard to legislate, though. That's hard to say, well, there X number of members can be this long. And because as you've seen people resign, and it's always constantly evolving. Councilmember Saper, I think. Yeah. Well, no, I knew your name. I wasn't sure if you were next.
We've made great strides in beginning strides in equity, inclusion, and broadening the civic involvement of residents in North Kansas City. Again, we've made great beginning strides. Now, one of the arguments that's been raised about people who have served long and well on boards is the experience, the history, the knowledge base that they have. But, particularly since we've been talking about Ms. Welburn, there is absolutely a simple solution. Those boards can ask that they volunteer or hire people as consultants to the board to continue their ongoing programs that are so vital. Their reorganization, their history, that can be an ongoing thing, but we can then at the same time broaden the base of civic involvement with new people. It's not an either-or situation. And it's important that we really commit ourselves to these things that we've said in Equity Inclusion Committee establishment and many of the other things we've done, the things we've done tonight in terms of conversion therapy, broadening the fact that we are an inclusive community. We want not only to have people here, we want them involved in the civic, ongoing life of North Kansas City. And by broadening that base in our various committees, we can actually further that commitment. So in many ways, this discussion about boards, not just Ms. Welburn, but also, in fact, term limits speaks to that. It says, are we going to really commit to these issues of inclusion, broadening the base of civic involvement, only when it's easy, or when there are hard issues involved? And I think really this vote comes down to, are we really going to commit to these things or not? Or not?
Thank you, Councilmember Graves.
I want to thank Jonathan Barnes for his comments, and he actually really hit the nail on the head. And I talked to a friend of mine in the community that's been on the board for many, many years, and gave me an example of a project that he's been working on, the baseball field back in Park Field 1, which he informed me he's been working on that for 6 years. And so I have the utmost respect for people on these boards that volunteer their time and their skills and knowledge to help the city. And so I think these people should be treated better than this. And one suggestion I have that Councilmember Palumbi touched on is if we really do want to spread out the board activity or membership or however you want to look at it, the mayor and I looked at a chart one day, and we have a chart of they broke down board members by wards, and wards 1 and 2 are severely overrepresented. And if you dig deeper into that, there are people that serve on 2 and sometimes 3 boards. And most of those people happen to be in wards 1 or ward 2. And so I'm against term limits. However, if we do want to spread out board membership to like wards 3 and 4, for example, then what I would suggest we look at, and maybe this isn't even for us, maybe the mayor should just do this with his reappointments. When someone's up for reappointment, perhaps just approach that person and say, Mr. Whatever, you're on 2 boards, one of your terms is expired, which board do you prefer to stay on? And then vacate one of those spots for someone else. And so instead of having term limits, you would still have that qualified good person on the board of their choice, and that would open up a spot for someone else. So that would be my suggestion.
So what I would add on the overlap is the largest overlap that I can see right now is we have between the TIF Commission and the Industrial Development Authority, which a lot of that work kind of goes hand in hand in some ways. Because to my understanding, it's the Industrial Development Authority that ultimately approves the bonds that the TIF Commission's discussed. And Tom or someone can correct me if I'm wrong on the flow there. But I think, so there is sometimes some benefit to, I think, someone working on something and then also being that final issuer of the bonds. So the IDA, I mean, that's required, I think, statutorily for us to have that set up like that. Maybe not. Maybe we just chose to go that route. But
It's not statutorial, but you're correct in the fact that it is kind of 2 arms of one process. So the TIF Commission would be the left arm, and the IDA, who is the issuer of the bonds from the TIF proceeds, is the right arm. So in the past, they have appointed a heavy overlap between the two, just so a base of understanding between those two, since they're kind of step 1 and step 2 of one process.
yeah, no, but certainly, I've heard the feedback this evening, and I've been trying, I look, like you mentioned earlier, qualifications. I also am trying to look at wards, still an imperfect process, and some of it's still based on the applications you just have on file. Sometimes there might be someone for a ward, they just aren't my favorite. I mean, they aren't rising to the top of my pile. So I am actively trying, and I would ask for the council's help in this too, because while I've gotten a lot of applications, I'd like a lot more. I'd like to have just stacks of I'm already getting a problem. Sometimes it is kind of hard. You're like, oh, I got a lot of good people. This is tougher than I thought. But I always want more. I want to see more representation for all wards, and if I have more applications on file, then I can certainly diversify, by ward and by every other way I look at it. So, council member, I don't think you've gone yet, Clevenger.
Thank you, Mayor. So a couple of things. Certainly, I'm for diversification in different wards, getting, representation from different wards. To go back to Tony's point about, the older members in the institutional knowledge and bringing in a consultant or hiring someone, that costs money. And I don't know that some of these boards, the library board and parks, they have their own money, but a lot of those are on tight budgets based on the tax levy, and even more now with the Blankenship decision. So that would be, something you could do, but it would cost more money. where we're getting some of the institutional knowledge for free on these volunteer bases. So, that's just something to think about.
Councilmember Toll.
I did this through email of people that I was communicating with, but I think I probably should say publicly that I did make an error in our last vote because I was making a decision on term limits that are not in fact in place. I do believe that we're on the cusp of something great here. I think we will get there organically. We are receiving a lot of applicants. I'm hearing from a lot of people that want to get involved, and they have faith that their application will be viewed and considered. So I think we may achieve what we were trying to do, possibly with policy, in an organic way, without policy. I have faith that the mayor is going to look at all of the applications, and I also would like to say that the Equity and Inclusion Committee has decided to start highlighting someone from each committee and making a video one meeting at a time so that people are aware of what the commitment is and what work you actually do. I also think talking about it tonight is a great way to help because, as Councilmember Graves said, there are some misconceptions about who has applied and if those applications will be looked at, and they will be. So I think if we continue doing the work in this way and having a public discussion when necessary, we can help that along.
Thank you. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the EIC taking that on. I think that'll help. If people are more aware of what these boards and commissions do, hours, even what an agenda looks like, I think that'll certainly help and encourage more people to apply. And I said someone was next, and I think it was Councilmember. I might have said you. Now,
Councilmember Tull really hit on it, because I completely hear you, Councilmember Saper, but I do think it does have to happen organically. I don't think by setting term limits, that's the way we achieve it. I think the more we pay attention when we have liaisons on the boards, we can recognize, what happens on those board meetings and kind of who we feel like is ready to prepare us for the future and who's maybe not really the best fit to continue on, could be the feedback as well. And I think showcasing videos is going to be a huge thing. I think the EIC has great ideas there. And I think, yeah, without having to hammer down a policy, I'm in agreement that at this time, I don't see a need for term limits as much as just more engagement and making people aware when, say, we're a year out from a position being opening or within 6 months of a position being opening. I think that'll be helpful.
Yeah, and I will say to add to that process, I've already discussed with Crystal setting a little bit better a timeline on how appointments go. So, getting 6 weeks out, start making that decision because it comes to me first. The general flow, just so everyone understands, it comes to me first and say, yeah, on reappointments. Yes, no, would you be interested in reappointing this person? And then I give that to her, and then beyond that, once that happens, if it's a yes, they're going to get a sheet or a sheet similar to fill out and give to council. If the answer is no, they're going to be notified that, thank you for your service, and then it's going to be posted on Facebook, Twitter, everywhere else that this opening's coming up. So that way, I know some of these have lagged a little bit, but try to get a little bit more timely. So I have been working on process. That's part of the work, I don't know. So it didn't come with a handbook here, so I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing as I'm going along here. But I'm trying to improve some of those processes, and I think we got a little bit better plan, courtesy of our clerk here. She's been very helpful in helping me keep me straight on all this stuff. But thank you, Councilmember Saper.
Clarification. When I said that the boards can then hold on to this experience and talent, the person who has been serving on that board, who is then excluded because they have indeed, their term has expired, they can then volunteer to serve as a consultant to the board to continue on the policies and continuity of what's been happening. It's not an either or. It's not whether they're off as a member of the board or do they in fact have an impact on what's going on the board. They can do both. They can be a non-member of the board who serves the board very well. And those can be paid or unpaid positions. It happens all the time in public agencies. The next part is we've sort of conflated this item and the next one in this discussion. There's no question about that. And I'd like to point out that, again, the arguments that have been made for Ms. Welburn are that her vast experience and knowledge in the ongoing reorganization, I've been told, that's going on with the board. I don't know this for a fact, but I've been told that's the case, and no reason to doubt it. but her experience and talent and expertise can certainly continue as a consultant to the board, again, whether volunteer or paid. And that can happen with any board in any situation. Organizations do that all the time. So I am really strongly in favor of some sort of term limits. It would vary by board in terms of this one item we're now talking about. But I'll have more to say on the next item as well. I think in some ways, it's depending on our commitment to the whole issue of inclusion, equity, and broadening the civic involvement of people who live here. It's really a time to either put up or not.
Councilmember Smith.
Two small things on that. So first, I like the idea of the consultant, the person transitioning to a consultant, but they wouldn't be able to serve in closed sessions, which is where a lot of the bigger business happens. So they would be excluded, and then, right.
No, they can sign a non-disclosure agreement, all kinds of things. They can be included throughout the broad breadth of whatever goes on. There's no limitation to that.
Oh.
I don't believe that would be the case legally.
What's that? That they could or could not?
Could not go into if I understood it right, into an executive session?
Right, so if there was an executive session, a non-board member could not do that, right?
Typically, no, there could be a specific exception made, that is true.
Okay.
Okay, and specifically with the hospital, what I'm not familiar with, they have a detailed set of bylaws, and I have not reviewed those.
Okay.
I'm just talking, generally speaking, that's the way that would be.
Okay, and then I do think it's a little bit of an unfair characterization that if we don't approve term limits, that we're not being serious about diversity. That's a little bit of an unfair jump, because even if we don't have term limits in policy, the mayor can still non-approve somebody. He can still, by his decision to appoint somebody here or there, can choose to foster diversity, and then we as a council can approve that. So it's not a guarantee, since we're not setting a term limit, people still may not get renewed. And that would be the discretion of the mayor, which it should be, that's his right. And we put our trust in that, and then we get the check and balance on that, we get to vote yes or no. So if we disagree, and if you strongly disagree, you have the right to vote no on a reappointment. So that's why I just say we don't put anything in stone as far as term limits.
Thank you. Any further discussion on this? I didn't hear any consensus on them. Unless you had more to add, then we can just move on to the next item, unless someone... No further discussion. We'll move on to the next item.
Number 17, reconsideration of reappointment of Rebecca Welburn to the Hospital Board of Trustees.
So we can do this, there we go, sorry. We can do this one of two ways. I mean, I can either just put her up and you guys vote, or we can do a reconsideration vote, however council feels. I mean, that's 2 votes, or we can do it in 1. If someone wants to move to reappoint her, we can just have her up. And
I move to reappoint Rebecca Welburn to the hospital board.
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. No. I heard 1 no from Councilmember Saper.
I would say,
Motion
can you
carries.
call the roll?
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger,
Yes to reappoint.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi,
I'm going to abstain.
Councilmember Graves,
Yes.
Councilmember Saper,
No.
Councilmember Toll.
Yes.
6 to 1 to 1, so it passes.
611. All right. That's your roll.
Number 18, Armor Road Delineator discussion item.
One of these days, I'm just going to take over that because I really want to, apparently. Kim, go ahead, please. I know.
I'd like to call on the Community Development Director, Sarah Copeland.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I know we've had a lot of conversation about Armor Road, but this is a very detailed question that we want to ask you tonight. When we have previously discussed this, Council gave staff very clear direction that you wanted to remove all the delineators from Armor Road. And we heard that, and we're working on doing that. But one of the other part of that was we were directed to install curb stops in areas where we thought it was important to provide protection to the bike lane, where we're not already installing like the bump out islands at Armour and Howell. So you'll see in the memo, there are a few spots where we're putting in these curb stops for protection. One is over here at Gentry, where we don't want people to veer into the bike lane while they're making a right turn. A little further west to protect the bus stop that is between Gentry and Fayette. And then between Lynn and Knox, we would have curb stops protecting people along the right turn lane there at Knox. And as you approach Lynn going east, again, so people don't veer into the bike lane to create a right turn. You'll note if you go south of the river on a regular basis, you'll notice that as Kansas City has put in their Gillum Road cycle track, they have alternated curb stops and delineators. One of the things that you all, the last time the council discussed this, there was some interest in having a taller vertical element to the protection between the bike lane and the vehicle lanes, just so drivers have a better visual of where those items are. And, you know, Kansas City's installation of the curb stop and the delineators alternated provides some of that vertical element. So our question for you is just, you know, as staff, we think this looks pretty nice. Because of the placement of the delineators between the curb stops, it doesn't seem like they're getting hit as often by drivers on Gillum Road, so they don't look as beaten up. So our question is whether you would like us to do something like that. We have heard that delineators are not desirable, so we would not put them in absent your approval. If you did not want that installed, we would just stick with the regular curb stops, as you directed us earlier. But we just wanted to bring this to your attention and see if you were interested in making this modification.
There's been disapproval of delineators?
Maybe I'm asking you to touch the third rail here, but we thought it was worth asking you the question.
No, so I would ask, you know, this is kind of I think if I looked at it right, every other, if I recall the picture right, curb stop. I mean, could you potentially lessen the frequency if we decide to go this route? You know, have several curb stops and delineators just so there's some, you know, you want a guideline, but I also don't want too many.
Right, and I would point out that we probably, the place where we would have the most of these, really, because it's the longest, is between Lynn and Knox, where we have the longest stretch where we would have kind of several of these in a row. I mean, if you looked at Gentry, there just wouldn't be that many, because it's not that great of a distance. So certainly we could do, you know, a dash dot version of this.
We're sending messages for the satellite view.
Right.
No, my only concern, especially when we first did this, was always, you know, it's so low lying that I was afraid that people are going to be running into it. And then the next step is removing all of it again. We're kind of back to the whole conversation. You have 4 or 5, you know, actual bad car incidents, wrecks. I was reading an article, I think it was Boston. I sent some people earlier. It's like where a car maybe hit them and flipped over or flipped on its side. Now, I hope you're not going that fast that actually occurs on Armour, but as I sit here, you see some periodically. So I definitely support if we could get a mix or just find something that's taller, but I saw all kinds of hands fly up. Councilmember Smith.
So one of the only ways I've been able to stave off the anger about this is to say, yes, the delineators they'll be gone. And now when we had the discussion about what option to replace them with, I was one that supported the taller option, the bike rail. And the curb stops, it was what was voted on by the council at the time. I don't think it was this council, it was the one before. I don't like the curb stops at all because they are small, they're hard to see, and they're easy to run over. Looking at the picture here that we have of Gillum Road, I think the reason it works in that spot is that it's only one. There's not both sides going on. It's fewer delineators, and it's in a single row straight down the road. If there are other options because I agree, just the curb stops aren't going to get it done. I don't think that was a good answer to the problem. Even painted, they're still too low to see oftentimes. If we could explore other options like the bike rail or the Jersey barriers that could be painted fun colors to be obvious and line them up so there's an actual tall physical barrier. But I just can't see supporting delineators in any fashion. Otherwise, I'm going to get run out of town.
And I know I mentioned the Jersey barrier. Jersey barriers at one point earlier today. My concern would be getting them too high because obviously you want some visibility because there's a lot of ingress and egress along Armour. So if we went that route, something to consider. I'm bouncing back and forth here. I saw Roberts, I think.
Yeah.
Calling on you.
I agree with Jesse. I don't think I think Gillum is a very nice track. I've ridden on it. I drove by it this morning. I think it does work because of how the lanes are worked out, that they're on one side of the road. The curbs there's just no way to put it. They're pretty ugly. They look like temporary, just like the delineators just look like a temporary function. And then I think if you take the delineators away, it's so hard to see just that, that it's not going to be sufficient enough for bikers to feel safe going in the lanes. I do think we need something that's elevated more like a Jersey barrier. I did see like examples online that have like neat artwork that is bright and colorful and really like makes the community look interesting. Of course, if we want to go crazy and spend a lot of money, we could raise the actual lane. I don't think that's going to happen. I think, I know we're still in like a prove it phase, and I'm all for these bike lanes, but I don't think the curbs work in this function. I think, maybe the rails might be a better idea, but I think you still need to have the issue with height. They're the same around, at least the ones I've seen are about the same size of these curbs. So I think you're going to have to get something that's as high enough that people feel safe riding them. But yeah, curbs solo, not going to work. Delineators, I know they're ugly, but I'm not in favor of either one of those options, really. I think we can keep exploring.
And I do think, if I recall seeing like a full picture of the bike rail, I do think they're using delineators maybe even on those. I don't recall. Do you recall, Sarah?
You can order them with a delineator attached. They also have a more decorative, I think they call it hoop option. So that it's a curve, and that is tall like a delineator. So it's a modular product. So they have lots of options.
We definitely want to make sure we have something that stops vehicles. Councilmember Toole, I'll just let it.
I have to agree with Jesse. Aside from term limits, delineators is what I got the most response on, and people are saying, why are we talking about delineators? I thought those were dead. So I could not support delineators. I understand the need for height visually is what you're saying possibly. And what we have is lower. I was wondering if asking if the current plan was those stops and maybe even painted. Yeah. So that's what we have, and you don't think that that's going to be enough, correct?
No, what we're saying is that when we had this conversation previously, council expressed interest in having something taller, which is not where we ended up with these plans based on your direction. So we were asking if now that, if you've seen what's south of the river on Gillum, would you be interested in something like that? What I'm hearing is the answer is no, which is fine, and we'll move forward with the curb stops, which was what you all directed previously.
Okay.
The answer, can I follow up just real quick? Sorry. Please. The answer is no, but if the feeling is that we need height for safety reasons, is that what, I feel like
No,
that's
this
what
is
was
a
said?
25-mile-an-hour road, so no, the curb stop should be sufficient, but if you wanted something taller that would be easier for drivers to see, we would have to explore other options.
Okay, because looking at the photo that you sent on Gillum Road and how that's painted, and you have those stops and the delineators in there, looks wide enough to me that we would be able to use those elevated areas like a stop, or it could be like a curb, and have a little dirt through there and plant those beautiful grasses that get just tall enough to block that off visually, as long as you felt that the stops there would be enough to be protective.
I'm not sure that we have the width of the buffer space on
That they
Armour
do on
Road
Gillum?
to provide that, yes.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go Clevenger Saper. Clevenger.
Couple of things. Throw a little institutional knowledge out here, I guess. I think the old council, I think this was an old council vote, and a few that are not on here now, maybe we're not so keen on Armour Road and the way it was set up, so looking for the cheap way out. Of course, the residents in the survey and everywhere else have told us they don't want the delineators, so I would not support the delineators as well. The curb stops, I think, will protect, but if we want to look at something as an elevation that doesn't make it look like a construction zone, that's, kind of artistic or, because I think people think that the delineators look like construction cones. So if we can work out something on that on the height, I'm certainly not opposed to listening to that as well, but delineators, nah.
Councilmember Saber.
Yeah, I agree about the delineators with everybody else so far, and the public out there doesn't want them. And maybe not much else on it. However, the example you showed of Kansas City, that road again has a higher speed limit than we do here. And they have their concrete slabs or whatever, what are they called?
Curb stops.
Curb stops, thank you. They have those sort of pulled about a foot or more from the line in the middle of the area that's designated, that's striped. Ours tend to be right on the line, and they tend to get hit a lot because of that, I think. I think a simple modification of moving them to the center of that striped zone would, again, solve a good part of that problem. And the second part is we could be a little more creative in colors. Not necessarily white for the space where the delineators will be, not delineators, but the curb stops will be going. Those could be painted, what, yellow or something else to grab people's attention to the fact that, in fact, there's a space there that has to be recognized and adhered to. I mean, and if that doesn't work, we can always go with something higher later. Again, we don't have to have every solution at any given moment in time. We can try this, that looks good, and it might work. If it works, fine. If not, we can address the shortcomings later. But I'm a little concerned, I guess, is it's now 6 months since the council made the initial decision to go ahead with these changes, and nothing's happened. That troubles me, frankly. If you have any simple answer to that, I'd like to hear it.
The elements that will be put out to bid, we received the bid plans back from the engineer a couple of weeks ago. We're reviewing those, and then we will have to work with Tom on front-end documents to put it out to bid. The other elements that we're doing in-house have to be coordinated with that work. Some of it we want to wait for the contractor to do the work. Like, for instance, putting the curb stops over at Fayette and taking up the delineators. Well, part of that has to be done after the contractor will do the work of reinstalling the right turn lane. Because we can't put in what we're putting in until that work is done. We also have been waiting to figure out if Armour Road is going to be resurfaced this year or next year, because we don't want to put down a lot of markings that then would be covered by resurfacing if that was going to be on the road district's list of projects. And so we delayed to figure out if we were going to be able to wait until after a resurfacing project happened or not.
Just to follow up, so if we have to wait for a resurfacing, that would probably be next summer, I would suspect. So after our initial council decision in January, we're talking about a 1.5-year timeline?
From my understanding, at this point, we just don't really have any direction from the road district. I mean, there's really no idea on where this, correct me if I'm wrong, there's really no idea where this falls on the priority list at this point. Or have you been able to have that conversation?
We had a light conversation about it. They mentioned they might be amenable or looking into, they could do Armour next year, but it's not in their agenda right now, and it would have to be discussed further.
We mostly just wanted to make sure we weren't going to put down markings that were immediately covered.
Yeah,
exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
Councilmember Smith.
Okay, so as a matter of process, the council approved the curbs. Now we have a new council. Can we approve something different? Can we change course on that? Or have we ordered curbs of any kind? Have we already put
We
this
have
in?
not ordered the materials yet.
Okay, so is it within the prerogative of this council to review options again and say, okay, now we want something taller, or we want something different than just the curbs as a visual? I mean, is that something we can do?
I would
I'm
believe so if we
unsure
have-
where we are on the purchasing component, and
We
there
have
is budgetary.
Not purchased anything, so if you want to direct us to do something different, you would not be disrupting any purchases we'd already made.
Okay.
That would probably be something that I would ask to bring forward to the city council, because there would be a fiscal note attached.
Sure. And the budget season is coming up, right? So we could work that into the
Correct,
new
correct.
budget?
It, depending on, it gets a little fun when you're coming up on 2 different budget cycles.
Right.
So depending on how fast staff could, and we would ask for a little bit more direction tonight so that we are bringing forward items that you are really looking for. It could be a current budget amendment, or it could be something that we bring over into the new proposed budget. It really depends on timing.
Okay, because I would like to see that happen, new consideration of other possible elements for this, because as Zach pointed out, there was a few members who generally disdained the whole project, so it wasn't a high priority to get the right sort of stuff in. So I think a review of these options would be very important ahead of the budget.
I would ask that you guys have, whichever discussion or dialogue you would like, and then maybe give us some very clear directions of what you'd like to see forward. We can bring that forward again for council discussion, again with some understanding of what the cost difference would be,
Yeah.
and then you guys can direct us to what your wishes are at that time.
Okay, and Sarah did an excellent memo last time we had that discussion. If we could, that memo with the options that you presented, if we could just see that one again and have another discussion, I think that.
Are you referring to tonight or?
No, this was back in January.
No, well, no, I mean, have
Oh,
that
no,
discussion
no,
tonight. Or
not
next
tonight.
meeting?
It would need to be something that the council could all see and review before voting on.
So, okay. Councilmember Toll.
I have had comments from the neighborhood. I thought you guys approved that. Why aren't they doing anything? And hearing that we're waiting on some direction and it's not even on their immediate agenda. Is there anything that we can do to help make this an important item on the road district? Can we request that it be something that's discussed at their next formal meeting?
Get someone to run for it for once. That's they have 3 people on there. It's not a priority of theirs. It hasn't been a priority of theirs. One of them's the former mayor. He's the chair.
And can you tell me where the meetings take place if we have residents that would like to attend?
Can I cannot.
The meetings are here at City Hall.
They're here, so it's in the chambers.
I can make that request that they have those meetings in the chamber.
All right, thank you.
But they're their own political subdivision, so they
Yes,
don't have to really.
It would be a
They don't
request.
answer to, yeah.
So they don't have to have open meetings?
They do have to have open meetings.
Okay, so can we notice those up and make sure that the public is aware?
Those meetings are available. We don't post them on our website because it is not our political jurisdiction. I feel like this microphone is
It
cutting in.
offers.
Okay. I like to know that it's not just me. That is something that we do put on our board. That could be something that we provide to the city council. When we receive those agendas, again, they are a separate political subdivision. And perhaps you let your constituents know of these meetings.
Absolutely.
Perfect, thank you.
Councilmember Clevenger.
Yeah, so I'd like information about when they meet, and I'd like to start going to some of those. Like Mr. Mayor DeLong said, there is a 3-commission board. One of them's our previous mayor, and a couple of other people that, again, have expressed interest to me that they're not really interested in Armour Road. Hopefully, maybe we can get them to change their mind, but I don't think we can force them to do anything. They're funded by a tax levy. I know that they'd used some funds received some coronavirus funds, and they'd use those. But, yeah, it's something that it is 3 members, and the elections do occur, I believe, when our municipal elections occur. And so, yeah, anytime if we can get some information, notice those up on our, to our people as far as when they are occurring so that we can at least be informed on what they're doing.
Certainly, thank you. I think that's a big thing that, we want to work with them. It's obviously our main road. It's a high priority to us. I would hope it would be a higher priority to them to make sure that our one of our higher traffic roads are taken care of. Is there any further discussion on this tonight? I know we kind of open-ended on guidance. Did you want to present that memo again at the next meeting and further that discussion?
I would ask Sarah, I hate to put you on the spot,
Oh.
is there any further guidance that you would like?
Not at this time.
Sarah, can you resend that memo that you sent way back with all the different options, like the waive option and all those.
Be happy to provide that to you.
All right, any further comments on this item? Seeing none, next item, please.
Item 19, approval of Second Amendment to parking agreement with Store Safe 4 LLC, revised parking lot ratio, et cetera. Bill number 7613, ordinance number 9410.
Kim.
I'd like to call on the city councilor, Tom Barzee.
Mr. Mayor, members of the city council, before you is the Second Amendment to the parking development agreement between the city and Store Safe 4. Primarily what this does, I mean, I listed in the memo all the things that it does, but primarily what it does is we had an estimate of how many parking spaces there would be. Based upon conversations with the council, your direction, more green space. Also considering a business on the west side there of Clay Street, that the semis, so that they would have more room to get out. We moved the islands back and we lost 4 more spots there. And the original drawing just automatically assumed you could put parking spaces every place. And for example, Store Safe 4, the Millers, have 3 thermal wells that need to be protected with bollards, and so up against their buildings, so those spaces are shaded in. And then the other thing that it does, now that we have a real engineer's drawing, the drawing attached is now being substituted in the original parking development agreement, and each of you have a copy of that. Also, it now gives legal descriptions, and the legal descriptions, I can't describe those to you, but I can show them to you now in color, and that's what's in front of each of you this evening. What is in orange there, Store Safe 4 keeps. Okay, the light blue, kind of catty corner from that, the light blue is what the city will keep after we acquire the property. And so the other two, the one in the northwest corner that I think looks kind of, maybe I'll call it purple, okay? That one we will acquire from Store Safe 4. That's what gives us now access, what the city has wanted, access to 18th Avenue, okay? And then they will get the parking that's from us that's right up next to the building. The only thing that you need to understand is, it's my understanding where they're going to be putting the lights will be right on the property line down the middle, the lights for, and so Store Safe 4 will need to give us, and they've agreed to give us, where we get onto their property just a little bit, because, you know, a concrete bollard coming out of the ground with a pole on the top is going to be partly on their property. They will give us a permanent easement to that. So that's what this, in essence, does, what this agreement does. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions?
First reading.
Councilmember Toll.
I just wanted to say thank you to staff for building in the extra green space, which I thought was an economical way to achieve the goals that we had, so thank you.
Any further comments? Seeing none, is there a motion?
First reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
An ordinance adopting and approving Second Amendment to Parking Development Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Store Safe 4 LLC.
I move that bill number 7613 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9410.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Toll?
Yes.
An ordinance adopting and approving Second Amendment to Parking Development Agreement by and between the City of North Kansas City, Missouri and Store Safe 4 LLC. Number 20, removal of 2.36.290 additional court costs, Sheriff's Retirement Fund. Bill number 7610, ordinance number 9407.
Kim.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Recently, the courts have decided in Fowler versus Missouri Sheriff's Retirement System that the additional $3 surcharge on every circuit court criminal case has been found to be unconstitutional. I would note kudos to our own Tom Barzee in his original memo when the city council adopted this particular item into the ordinance. He questioned its constitutionality, but on advice that we were given, and all of that is in your packet, there was an opinion letter that did direct cities to impose this $3 fee. So now that item has gone through the courts and has been found unconstitutional, just a quick note that our own municipal court, under direction, ceased as of July 1st imposing or collecting this particular one as an administrative decision. But that doesn't change the fact that this particular surcharge is still in our code. So tonight, for formal action in front of you, is an ordinance to take this particular fee out of our city ordinance, and or out of our city code. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions?
First reading.
Second.
All those, where are we at, in ordinance? All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
An ordinance repealing Section 2.36.290, Additional Court Costs Sheriff's Retirement Fund of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri.
I move that Bill number 7610 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9407.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
An ordinance repealing Section 2.36.290, Additional Court Costs Sheriff's Retirement Fund of the Code of the City of North Kansas City, Missouri. 21, Budget Amendment Establishing the One North TIF Fund, Resolution Number 21-057.
Kim.
I'd like to call on the finance manager, Nick Hawkins.
Good evening, Mayor and members of council. So this resolution establishes the fund for the One North TIF District. It's largely an administrative fund. We'll use it to track revenues through 3 different sales taxes, property taxes, and hotel motel tax, and then we'll simply pass those through to the district as we receive them and as we receive requests for reimbursement. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Number 22, Approval of Janitorial Services Contract, Resolution Number 21-051.
Kim.
I'd like to call on the city clerk, Crystal Doss.
So we went out for bids for our janitorial service for the City Hall, the police station, the library, and the Parks and Recreation Building. We received 3 bids, and the lowest and best bid was Hygiene's Janitorial at $4,070 monthly. They are who we have now, so I think
I will say my kids have been up here a lot, and they are a mess in my office, and they've been doing a good job of cleaning it up. So thank you. That's a good barometer here. Councilmember Clevenger.
I was going to ask staff if they're still doing a good job. I'm so happy North Kansas City Company getting the contract, and definitely going to approve it.
Any further discussion?
Yeah, even if it was the higher bid, I love a good pun in a name, so I move to approve.
Second.
All those in favor, please
Yes.
say yes.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Item 23, approving accounts due and payable by the city through July 16th, 2020. Bill number 7614, ordinance number 9411.
First reading.
Second.
All in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through July 16th, 2021.
I move that Bill number 7614 be placed on second and final reading and passes ordinance number 9411.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
An ordinance authorizing payment for certain accounts due and payable by the city through July 16th, 2021.
All right, number 24, staff comments.
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. In your packet, you find we had 2 items for your review. One of them is the upcoming city items of note, and the second one was a letter from Dr. Righteous, who is the CEO of the North Kansas City Hospital, providing a COVID update. He does send his regrets that he was unable to make it tonight. He wanted to make this update in person, but he had a conflict, a work-related conflict this evening. So he did send this letter in his absence. I do have and I will send these to you via email, but there are a couple of budget-related dates just that I would like for you to get on your radar. Just to kind of, and we've got a lot of new council members, so the proposed budget is presented to City Council the 3rd week of August. That gives you about 2 weeks of review from our first budget work session. We have 3 budget work sessions that are scheduled, 2 that are really for content, 3rd is if we need it. So on Wednesday, September 1st at 6 p.m. here in the chambers, we will go over operating budget. And then on Wednesday, September 8th at 6 p.m., we will go over capital project. And then just to notate, especially for those who might be new to the process, we do ask the Library and Parks and Recreation to come on that first date, September 1st, so they will present both of their operating and their capital, and that's just a courtesy to them. That way they don't have to come to 2 separate meetings. Should there be a lot of dialogue and you ask for a lot of changes to the proposed budget, we have Tuesday, September 14th, 6 p.m. if needed. We do have to approve the city's budget by the last council meeting in September, technically by the last day of September if we needed a special session. But that is by state statutes.
Say there's a number of us that might not be in town September 1st, what would we do?
What do you guys all?
Because I'm out of town. I think both of them are out of town.
Is there another date that works that week?
I leave that day for 8 days.
2 weeks.
Yeah, no kidding.
Are you here earlier that week?
Mhm.
Say the 31st, Tuesday?
Yeah.
Are there any other date conflicts?
31st, yeah.
So we are looking at Tuesday, August 31st.
All right. Anybody opposed to August 31st? All right.
Thank you.
Is it 6 p.m.?
6,
Make sure you have food ready.
cannot do the 31st.
I can try to move something. Can I get back to you?
Can we,
Oh, yeah, I have a conflict, but I can work on it.
Is there another time that works better on that particular date?
Morning.
we just don't have a budget for next year.
We just hammer out all of them on some random Saturday. I mean, it seems like the solution to another.
We used to have 4-hour meetings on one night. I mean, we used to have 4-hour meetings if you all want to knock it out on one night, but that's a long night though, but I mean, it's an option.
Yeah, I was going to ask.
30th, Monday?
Monday, the 30th. Where are we at here?
Monday,
I'm seeing a prefer not.
Is there court that night, Kim?
There
they
is.
do have court
I
on
would have to
Mondays.
look at the court calendar. I'm unsure if I have court. Court is in these chambers.
Let me work on moving something that I've had in the calendar for months, so let me work on moving it.
So leave it on the 31st tentatively then?
Is that,
Can we call that, yeah, tentative and if
Tentative.
is that, okay, is there consensus there?
consensus that it's tentative?
That
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Tuesday, August
That
30th?
sounds like very solid guidance we're giving you here.
August
That's
31st?
2 asterisks, yeah. And the second day of,
The second date is Wednesday, September 8th,
okay.
6 p.m.
6
How do
p.m.
we feel about that one?
We will not be.
I'll be back. You'll be back? You won't be here. Okay.
I'm gone most of September.
This is always the fun part, is trying to coordinate all this in person live here.
Scheduling is always the fun
Yeah.
part.
We got
Yeah.
a majority at least.
I'll be here. Do we need a quorum or do we need everybody?
You need a quorum. I mean, I prefer.
These are work sessions.
Right, okay.
So if you're unable to make them, like I said, my goal would be to get you the budget with plenty of time for review. If you would like to perhaps pass on written questions or remarks to the mayor, if you feel comfortable with that solution.
Okay, if everyone is good at that, we will also be here on September 8th. Any other meetings you'd like to, no, kidding. No, okay. Is that all for you? Anyone else? Any other takers?
Are there any staff that would like to make a comment at this time?
I feel like I should start calling on. No, I'm kidding. What do you got, Anthony? No, I'm kidding.
I think from the staff side,
Yeah.
from the staff side, we're good.
Thank you. Where are we at? Council member comments, starting with Councilmember Smith this evening.
All right. A few things from me. So first, thank you for all the public comments and the feedback we got after the last meeting. Even if it's to tell us we did the absolute wrong thing, it's good to hear from people. And I also want to say thank you to Jonathan Barnes for also telling us we did the wrong thing and for serving on the Planning Commission. His service, he's been on there for a long time, he's done a lot of great things. Howell Street is moving along very quickly. Good job. I saw about 38 people in neon vests out there pouring curbs today, so it'll probably be done in a few days at this pace, avoiding any rain. So excited to see that coming together. And then, it's all over the news. Missouri is a hot spot now for COVID. Again, we hoped never to have that discussion again. But I don't know why I'm going to say it, but if you're listening to me talk right now and you're not vaccinated, please go get that done. Hoping a random council member saying that changes somebody's mind. May not. But please think about your health and the health of your neighbors and go get the vaccine. That's all from me.
Thank you, Councilmember Clevenger.
I've got about three things tonight. First of all, I want to welcome Sarah Shekels to the Planning Commission and welcome back Rebecca Welburn. And thank Jonathan Barnes for his service on the Planning Commission and his continued service on the Hospital Board. Also, at one point, I had emailed Eric on this, and now that we're back in person, I know we've got a lot of work sessions, but several years ago, we did CPR training here in the council chamber. I found it very helpful and informative, and it could always save somebody's life. I know we've got a lot of new council members on here now that, if you're interested and you don't know CPR, maybe Chief and them, we could do a work session when we have time. And a couple of other things. Citizens are really getting informed and engaged in the city, it seems like. We think about people moving to our city. Never really thought about people moving within the city until I was contacted, and Adam was too, by a couple of people migrating from Ward 2 over to Ward 3. They said something about the council representation over there. I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. No, they didn't. They were actually very complimentary of your all's emails, Lisa and Jesse, and they let us know that they expect that high standard of customer service in our ward as well. So we will endeavor to do that as well and welcome the new members to Ward 3. That's it.
Councilmember Roberts.
Well, Jesse, I guess you got my script beforehand because you took most of my notes here. But I will say maybe not one councilman saying it, but maybe two will get you to get vaccinated. Clay County is doing pretty terrible. The last number I saw was 38% fully vaccinated. That's awful. Our goal to reopen was 40%. We're still not there, and we've been open since May. Little troubling, especially as you see those numbers skyrocket. All things are pointing to 90+% of people that are going into hospitals have been not vaccinated. So go get vaccinated so that we don't have to, close down or anything like that. So I'm seconding that. In addition to that, it's National Lollipop Day, so go get yourself a lollipop if you think you deserve one. This past weekend, I finally made it to the Gorman Pool. It was great, and I encourage all citizens to go check it out. You get a pretty sweet deal. I believe you can get it at City Hall still, but if not, it's a couple bucks a day. Outside of that, the last thing I got is this Friday, Rise and Grind, the bakery coffee shop in the old Subway is supposed to be opening, which is very exciting to me, and I hope to be gaining a couple pounds in the next month.
Councilmember Clark.
I just want to say thank you again to Mayor DeLong for bringing prompting the abolishment of the conversion therapy on our youth. You brought that to our attention last year, and I'm glad we finally knocked that out tonight. And also to the city for, I know we voted on it last time, but the official adoption of Juneteenth as a holiday. I'm just going to be a broken record up here with the COVID cases. Kids are getting it now. We've had to pull kiddos out of summer school. They're talking mask mandates. Again, all the things that we all were trying to avoid. please, please be conscious of your health. If you're not well, don't leave the house or go get your vaccine, please. Experiment. And to Anna, who's going to have the numbers for us.
Thank you, Councilmember Palumbi.
I wanted to start by thanking all of our current board members for volunteering your time and your talent to serving on these committees and on these boards. Secondly, I want to thank the mayor as well for all your work in getting conversion therapy officially banned in our city, and so we can check that off of one of our Good Samaritan ideals that we've worked on. Next, I want to say for Ward 4, I would love to see more representation out of Ward 4, so if anybody is interested in being a part of the leadership or the committees that are available within the city, please reach out to me or Amy if you have questions about what positions may be open or what opportunities may be available to you. We would love to see additional representation within Ward 4. And then lastly, if you guys haven't heard about the COVID vaccines enough from the previous 3, I don't know if you guys looked at the memo that Dr. Reiches sent over, but even though that's a week past now, and I can say that these numbers are higher today than they were on the 14th, I urge you guys to get the vaccine. And if 4 people on the council is what it takes, then that's what it takes to get one additional person vaccinated. Missouri is currently the worst state in the entire United States for COVID cases. And so that really hits home to me because you guys know I've been in COVID for a long time, but the fact that we're, a year and 4 months in and we're still talking about it means it's very real. And if you, for some reason, do test positive, and you do want to know about additional treatment options, the hospital does have opportunities, so I would ask that you reach out to the members of the hospital about outpatient treatment options for those who may have more mild cases and may not necessarily need to be admitted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Graves.
I'd like to use my councilman's comments to discuss kind of what I'm working on at this time, and my new focus that is on the front burner is a skate park. There's a desire to have a skate park here in North Kansas City by the residents, and I've done a lot of research on this, and in the past it's almost been done, and people in places of power shut it down. We have new leadership now, and I believe we can get it done. I've actually also identified a perfect spot for it. Quick story, Mayor DeLong and I actually on election day were sitting outside talking in front of the YMCA and noticed right next to the greenhouse there's a giant grass area, and then also just south of the parking lot for the YMCA there's a giant grass area, and we were talking and I said that would be a perfect spot for a skate park. And upon further review, I've had meetings with the city, and it might not be, residents might not be aware of this, but we own the land that the YMCA/community center is located upon. That's our land, city land. There has been pushback in the past for skate parks near residential areas. For example, at one point in time, it was floated to put a skate park where the new Parks and Recs building is located, and there was pushback from, don't want to name names, but they're no longer here, as well as, people live on 25th Avenue, and their houses back up to a skate park. And skate parks do produce noise. I've also talked to business owners in the community that are concerned with people skateboarding. They're actually doing damage to their property. People grind on steps and, congregate. They need a place to go, essentially. They're not going to just stop skateboarding. People just need a place to go, a proper outlet. And so, in my opinion, the perfect spot is the YMCA. So I'm raising awareness right now. I would like residents, if you are pro skate park, reach out to your city council representative, ask them to get on board, and let's get it done.
Thank you, Councilmember Saber.
Yes, I visited our animal shelter this week, and I was impressed with the facility and how well it's taken care of. And it was pretty much full of cats and dogs mostly. But I noticed that it's severely understaffed. Apparently, we have been running it on 1.5 person staffing level. And one of those people are in the hospital apparently now. So that means that half person is doing the full-time work, and they're still missing a half person. So I would like us to consider in the next budget, increasing that level so that a couple of things could happen. Not only providing more staff, but also with the additional staff personnel there, they could do things like develop citizen volunteers to help work with the animal shelter. And it's really hard to actually work with volunteers at first because it takes staff time to work with the volunteers. And right now, that's not a possibility. But with increased staffing, that could be done. And that would maybe then make it possible to connect with other animal shelters throughout the city. Now, Chief, I'm going to have to ask for your comments later on as you think about this possibility and if it fits in with, as you see, the role of the animal shelter. You don't have to answer right now, but just think about it.
Taking notes right now, sir.
Okay. That's it.
Councilmember Tuttle.
I'll be the last person to talk on getting your COVID vaccine. If the healthcare community is worried, we should be worried. So talk to your neighbors, talk to your friends. If there's an issue with getting in or people don't know where to go now that we don't have the huge vaccination sites, call us, call the hospital, call the county, Clay County. We really need to do whatever we can to get our numbers up for the vaccine, not for the COVID. I also wanted to thank the community for responding to our request for feedback on term limits. We really did have an array of responses in every category. It's something that a lot of people had an opinion on and explained in such detail that I'm comfortable with where we landed with no term limits and having faith that with increased applications that we're going to get there without the need for term limits. I would like to thank Mr. Barzee because I learned a lot about court fees that I did not previously know. So thank you for that very detailed explanation. And then about how going so quickly, I mean, they are really moving. And I'm so appreciative because we are going to have a lot of students from North Kansas City walking across there this school year. I know I've said it before, but just in case you were unaware, Briarcliff is going to be at Norclay for 1 year while Briarcliff is getting renovated. So I'm just so happy that that's there, and thank you so much for your work.
Thank you. Got out and spoke to the residents at the gardens everything feels like 2 months ago. Last week, it was good to get out and talk to them, and I'm going to continue to work with staff to schedule some additional meetings with other wards and other engagement events just to get out in the community and talk to people more. Also presented the State of the Cities at the Clay County EDC luncheon last week in front of almost 300 people. I did post a slide deck on my Facebook and Twitter page for the 2 followers I have. And I'll be scheduling a longer version in October, November, or maybe my MySpace. I should have hit that up. I always like to throw in a MySpace joke. Outside of that, Lisa was going to be the last one, but I'll add it again. COVID-19 vaccinations. We're doing the homebound vaccination still, I believe. And to sign up for that, they just call City Hall or they call.
They can call Clay County Health Department, City Hall, the fire department will.
And the rep, you guys do that. Okay, perfect. So there's one option for people for homebound vaccinations. Also, you go to vaccines.gov. You can even search by manufacturer now. So if you don't like a certain one, you can search for, ones giving out the one that you may like. So I would definitely encourage everyone to do that, because when I talked to Dr. Righteous, it sounded like the majority, if not all, of the ICU patients are unvaccinated at the hospital right now. So those are your worst cases up there, and that's, like I said, it's all unvaccinated. So I'd definitely encourage everyone to, go to that website, take up the homebound option, and get vaccinated. It'll help us keep the economy going and running. Nobody wants to shut things down. Nobody wants additional restrictions. Nobody wants to mandate masks again. So I'd encourage everyone to get out and get vaccinated. That's all I have. Thank you. Next item.
Item 27, consideration of a request to hold and recess into an executive session as requested by the interim city administrator to be held on this date on a real estate matter pursuant to Missouri Revised Statutes, Section 610.0212.
So moved.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Clevenger?
Yes, ma'am.
Councilmember Roberts?
Yep.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Councilmember Palumbi?
Yes.
Councilmember Graves?
Yes.
Councilmember Saper?
Yes.
Councilmember Tull?
Yes.
Please remain seated until.